From Russia with Love, Anastasia'S story. A human being is part of the whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. We experience ourselves, our thoughts and feelings as something separate from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from the prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. The true value of a human being is determined by the measure and the sense in which they have obtained liberation from the self. We shall require a substantially new manner of thinking if humanity is to survive. That is a quote from Albert Einstein, 1954. This is one from Anastasia, or Anastasia. Everything but everything on earth, every blade of grass, every insect, has been created for man. Imagine a human growing up and never losing his or her sense of Creator's presence and unconditioned love. Imagine your parents dying before you could even walk or talk. Imagine having an eccentric grandfather and great-grandfather who allowed nature to raise you with little interference and no indoctrination from them or anyone else. Imagine being able to communicate with nature, understanding plants and animals, learning firsthand that everything around you was there to serve you, to nurture you, and to bring you joy. Imagine the power you would experience without even thinking it was power, only that it was life itself as it was meant to be. You simply knew that God had given you dominion over everything around you, and that you were always safe, no matter what the circumstances. Stop imagining. Such a human really exists. A woman. She lives in Russia, and her name is Anastasia. Vladimir Megre first presented her story to the world in 1996 in a book bearing her name as the title. That book has since been translated into 20 languages and has sold well over 10 million copies in Russia alone, without advertising, simply by word of mouth. The first English translation was released in February 2005. 8 subsequent books followed from this author, all telling the story of this amazing Russian lady who embodies the greater things than these shall you do that Jesus Christ promised would follow in the golden age of awakening, our age today. Anastasia'S is a simple, true story for a complex world that desperately needs greater love and understanding to heal us all, and the planet we call Mother Earth. It comes to us from Russia with Love through the pen of Vladimir Megre and a host of translators, printers, distributors, and other visionaries. It comes to us from the heart of God. The cosmic role of Russia in the spiritual evolution of man. Rudolf Steiner, who established the anthroposophical movement, taught that the Slavic folk soul would play a major role in the future development of a new spiritual humanity. Russians constitute the largest Slavic nation. He saw the Slavs as a spiritual bridge between the Orient East and the Occident West. According to Steiner, the religious thought of the Orient belongs to the past, the Occident's philosophical scientific thought to the present. The Slavic soul will bridge the two and create a pathway to a spiritual future. More than any other national soul, claims Steiner, the Russian folk soul strives to realize the world of the spirit. In Russia, the synthesis of the highest features of both Eastern and Western cultures would one day be achieved. The sleeping prophet, Edgar Cayce, said, quote, "In Russia there comes the hope of the world, not as that sometimes termed of the communistic or Bolshevik, no, but freedom, freedom, that each man will live for his fellow man. The principle has been born. It will take years for it to be crystallized, but out of Russia comes again the hope of the world. That was 1944. And again he wrote over a decade earlier, quote, "For changes are coming, this may be sure, an evolution or revolution in the ideas of religious thought. The basis of it for the world will eventually come out of Russia. Not communism, no, but rather that which is the basis of the same, as the Christ taught, his kind of communism," end quote. That's from 1930. And yet one more Casey quote. On Russia's religious development will come the greater hope of the world. Then that one or group that is the closer to its relationship may fare the better in gradual changes and final settlement of conditions as to the rule of the world. 1932. Alice A. Bailey, author of many books from 1922 to 1974, also saw a unique role for Russia in ushering in a new civilization. Decades ago, with Russia firmly behind the communist Iron Curtain, she predicted, quote, "Behind the closed borders of that mysterious and magnificent country, a great and spiritual conflict is proceeding, and the rare mystical spirit and the truly religious orientation of the people is the eternal guarantee that a true and living religion and culture will finally emerge. Out of Russia will emerge that new and magical religion about which I have so often told you." Also, the famous British clairvoyant Count Louis Hamann, who wrote under the pseudonym Chero, referenced the spiritual mission for Russia. Chero, whose best-selling 1926 Chero's World Predictions, described as a prophetic history of the last 7 decades, wrote, "The day will come when Russian waste of blood, the blood he has and will yet pour out like water, will make a new heaven and a new earth." Before his death, G.I. I wish I could say these names, Gurdjieff, or Gurdjieff, or however you say it, one of the most amazing spiritual teachers to come out of pre-revolutionary Russia, told his students, "Remember what I now say. Begin in Russia, finish in Russia." While the Indian guru Osho, an equally enigmatic and controversial teacher, is reported as observing, "Russia seems to be a land of destiny, not only for its own people, but for the whole world. It was the first to revolt against capitalism. It is going to be again the first to revolt against dictatorial communism. The future is of a democratic communism, a communism rooted in the freedom of man." The books. I have read the first 4 of 9 books in the Ringing Cedars of Russia series. 1. Anastasia. 2. The Ringing Cedars of Russia. 3. The Space of Love. And 4. Co-Creation. That's all I have so far, and I read all 4 in 4 days. Let me share with you a bit of her story with the intent, hers and mine, to remind you who we are. That, by the way, is the title of Book 5 that is back-ordered. Who are we? The English version of Book 6, the Book of Kin, has just been released. The English translation of Book 7, The Energy of Life, has begun. Book 8, Part 1, is The New Civilization, and Part 2, really it's Book 9, is Rights of Love. By the way, this was 2007, and now it's 2011 when I'm making this video. That's just an interjection on my part. Anastasia and Vladimir, a Russian entrepreneur and riverboat captain, met under most unusual circumstances. Of course, everything about Anastasia seems unusual, but only because what we consider normal is so unnatural, so synthetic, so contrived. She is distinctive for the very reason that God, through nature, taught her firsthand. From the smallest insect to a tiny shoot breaking through the earth and reaching toward the heavens, Anastasia witnessed nature with the innocence of a toddler, a child, a teenager, and a young woman. Once she flew with eagles, and she always played with the bears, wolves, and other animals in the deep forest of inner Siberia. In Vladimir's first night in Anastasia'S world, he slept with a bear himself. Of course, he was utterly shocked as he awakened the next morning and realized how she had kept him warm in her glade of the Siberian Tiga, the Russian word for the Siberian forest, without the benefit of a house or a building of any sort, not even blankets or sleeping bags. Yes, Anastasia had no modern amenities to offer, only a re-education for this unsuspecting man encountering a beautiful lady who was resourceful beyond belief. In his learning, his remembrance, we can all learn and remember, if we choose. Vladimir, like most, if not all of us who have grown up in our world of illusory distortions, appears very rough around the edges as he came face to face with the power and beauty, innocence and deep wisdom of Anastasia. Sometimes I felt like shaking him as he struggled to understand while criticizing her horribly. Yet he did not spare us his distress in trying to fit Anastasia into the box of his understanding of normality. Thankfully, this was his first attempt at writing, and he was uninfluenced by educated efforts to conform his style to so-called appropriate literary models. He simply told the story as he experienced it, what he saw, heard, felt, and understood. He also rejected editors who would have finessed, from their point of view, his unique writing style. Appreciating first-person writing, I was drawn into the story from the onset. Also, for whatever reason, I knew from the first time I heard about Anastasia that I simply had to get the books and read. So despite having my buttons pushed by Vladimir's crudeness and even cruelty, I resonate with his candor in sharing his deepest thoughts and feelings, since I often do the same. Who or what is Anastasia? I see Anastasia as naturally compassionate, nurturing, inquisitive, and so much more. So totally is she in touch with her emotions that tears flow as easily with her as hearty outbursts of laughter and exuberant expressions of joy. She is a veritable pool of bubbling spontaneity, a well of wisdom unsurpassed in our 21st century world, and an ocean of power to create everything anew. She is a woman spiritually gifted beyond anyone I have ever heard or read about, including all the great masters from the past. She may well be, and I believe she is, the vanguard of sweeping changes that encircle the planet and draw in a myriad of visitors from the far reaches, not only of this galaxy, but many others. She is an empowered lady, royalty even, though not one to be put on a pedestal or throne and removed from our own day-to-day lives. Neither would she want that. She is humble and does not consider her abilities to be anything more than that which is the heritage of all humans. She is a divine manifestation of the feminine aspects of the Creator in balance with and harmony with life. Yet, she is so human. Anastasia's grandfather, 93 at the time Vladimir met him, and the 119-year-old great-grandfather, told Vladimir that she is a normal woman, having all the innate desires that other women experience. There were definitely times in the telling of the story that her humanness came through in spades, and times that I even felt sorry for Vladimir when she came across as very controlling indeed. Of course, it was because she did not appear normal to Vladimir that he even needed such explanation. That's understandable. What Vladimir witnessed were unexpected synchronicities of what seemed to him like supernatural manifestations. Animals and birds fed her. Orbs of light seemed to be at her beck and call, sometimes flashing with lightning. She had a ray that could beam anywhere, making strange things happen. She seemed to have superhuman strength and dexterity. At times she could run like the wind, literally. Her knowledge of the world in which she lived was uncanny, more so considering the fact that she had rarely ventured into the outside world. She saw and knew things that were non-local, both in the sense of time and space, both in the sense of time and of space. She could take him back either into the distant or not-so-distant past, or forward into the near future, i.e., past life regression and future life progression. progression. What he experienced seemed very real indeed, not merely an illusion created by a hypnotist, though he often questioned how she did it. She could even take him to other places and other planets. She revealed things from his own past that she had no way of knowing except as a spiritual gift. She read his mind, often saying what he was thinking before he could blurt it out or without even wanting to speak it. And she told him that she understood and could communicate in all languages. She corrected misconceptions and deceptions of our history, religion, and technology. She provided insights into child-rearing, education, gardening, sexuality, relationships, and so much more. All this is even more remarkable considering her lack of formal education. Yes, it's true that she sees our modern education system as very deficient indeed. Still, how could this uneducated recluse have so much going for her? That's a question each reader will have to answer for him or herself as they venture into the miraculous, though simple world of Anastasia. Each must answer in his or her own heart and soul. Who is Anastasia? And in answering, the question immediately follows. Then who am I? What does it all mean? Perhaps the most amazing of all the stories in the books relate to the time after the first volume was published when the authorities came to persuade her to live in an encampment outside of Moscow where they could work together. Yeah, right. This story was not witnessed by Vladimir, but was told to him by a local eyewitness who was the guide for the authorities. Of course, it totally changed this man's view of life. Anyway, without ruining the entire story for you, of which there are several layers, Anastasia chose not to go with those armed men. When one of them reacted and emptied his clip toward her, all were amazed, as only a scratch appeared. The rest of the bullets seemed to simply disintegrate before reaching her as the orbs rapidly encircled her body. Remember the movie, The Matrix? It's not science fiction. What will we do with such powers that defy our understanding and explanations of the physical world? She proves the illusion and delusions in which we have been imprisoned and frees the willing. So much for authorities when we recognize our own sovereignty. She demonstrated for all of us that those who live in darkness are motivated by power, greed, and a desire to control others, and they actually have no real power at all. The only power is in trying to make us afraid, but even their success in that is waning for those who are not afraid to see the world as it is, both in the illusion and behind it. Anastasia is a prototype for all of us. It's no mistake that her story is rapidly spreading around the world. As her grandfather told Vladimir, she's not predicting the future, she's creating it. As she told Vladimir, in the book you are going to write, there will be unobtrusive combinations, formulations made up of letters, and they will arouse in the majority of people good and radiant feelings. These feelings are capable of overcoming ailments of body and soul and will facilitate the birth of a new awareness inherent in people of the future. Believe me, Vladimir, this is not mysticism. It is in accord with the laws of the universe. End quote. A multitude is coming together to co-create the vision this amazing lady brought to us, not just with the books, but also with a new paradigm reality that opens before us as a lotus blossom. Folks, this is the age of Aquarius. It is dawning across the world, and its rays are shining from Russia through Anastasia and those awakened in the spirit of the living God, creator of all and all. Creator of all and in us all. Sorry. To me, she is a Christed Buddhic woman, beyond religion and here to bring the balance and nurturing of the divine feminine. I feel deep appreciation that I am now consciously in her ray, and that she has reminded me who I am, not with mere words, but with a living demonstration of the natural heritage of the human family. Indeed, we are all one, and in the realization of that fact, we overcome the world. Behold, I see a new heaven and the new earth, for the old ones have passed away. I'm going to read that again. Behold, I see the new heaven and the new earth, for the old have passed away. I see a new generation of children, no longer taught to forget. Children who don't believe in God because they know God. I hear songs, anthems of freedom celebrated in dances of great joyfulness as the invisible walls that have imprisoned mankind dissolve in the light of God's love in each and all of us. Here, let me reach out my hand right now and wipe that tear of joy from your cheek, touching it to my own tear. Let me embrace you in this love that is shed abroad in our hearts. Namaste.